The night the princess chose love over gold, the kingdom held its breath. The moon hung low above the palace towers, watching as centuries of tradition trembled, and every candle in the royal hall seemed to flicker with fear. This was not a story meant to happen. This was not a choice allowed to be made. Yet somewhere between the heavy crown and a fragile human heart, destiny began to bend. A poor dreamer, invisible to the world, was about to change the fate of a princess and an entire kingdom without owning a single coin, only an unbreakable belief in hope. Before the story unfolds further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of love that defies the world, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope. Comment your thoughts and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The princess was born into light. From her first breath, silk wrapped her skin and gold lined her cradle. The kingdom celebrated her birth with fireworks, feasts, and songs that echoed across valleys. She grew up behind marble walls where pain rarely entered and where smiles were taught as duties, not emotions. Her life was written long before she learned to read. She would marry a prince of power, unite lands, strengthen alliances, and smile for the people even if her heart cracked beneath jeweled gowns. This was the price of royalty, and everyone reminded her of it daily. Yet inside her something remained untouched by luxury. She felt things deeply. She noticed the way servants avoided eye contact, the way musicians played happier songs than they felt, the way this city beyond the palace gates breathed with struggle. As she grew older, her curiosity turned into quiet sadness. She often stood on her balcony at dawn, watching the city wake up, imagining lives she was never meant to live. She longed for something unnamed, something real, something that did not come with applause. Beyond the palace walls lived the poor dreamer. He owned nothing but a small room with a leaking roof and a mind filled with visions bigger than the sky. He was born to a life where survival came before ambition, yet his heart refused to shrink. While others worked only to eat, he worked to imagine. He sketched inventions on scraps of paper, wrote poetry no one read, and stared at the stars as if they were maps leading somewhere better. People laughed at him gently at first, then cruelly. Dreams, they said, were luxuries for the rich. His days were heavy with rejection. Employers dismissed him for being impractical. Neighbors mocked his ideas. Hunger visited often. Still, each night, he whispered promises to himself that one day his dreams would matter. He believed the world could be kinder, fairer, and brighter even when it gave him no proof. That belief became his only wealth. Fate crossed their paths in the most ordinary way. The princess, disguised in simple clothing, slipped into the city one afternoon, craving anonymity and truth. She wandered through narrow streets, breathing in dust and humanity, feeling alive in a way palace gardens never allowed. That was when she noticed him sitting near a broken fountain, sketching something with intense focus despite the chaos around him. There was no fear in his posture, no bitterness in his face, only hope. She did not know why she stopped. Perhaps it was the quiet confidence in someone with nothing. Perhaps it was the strange familiarity she felt in his loneliness. They spoke as strangers, without titles or expectations, and something rare unfolded. He spoke of ideas and visions, of rebuilding broken systems and healing unseen wounds. She listened, not as a princess, but as a human being starving for truth. For the first time, no one bowed to her, and she did not feel invisible. They met again and again. Each meeting stripped away layers of pretense. She shared her fear of living a life chosen by others. He shared his fear of dying unheard. Their worlds were opposite, yet their hearts spoke the same language. Love did not arrive suddenly. It grew slowly, painfully, and dangerously. Every smile carried risk. Every touch threatened disaster. When the truth surfaced, it shattered the illusion. The kingdom reacted with outrage. Advisors spoke of shame. Nobles spoke of betrayal. The poor dreamer was branded a manipulator, a thief of honor. The princess was accused of weakness. Guards were ordered. Doors were closed. She was reminded of her duty, her bloodline, her crown. Love was called a childish fantasy unfit for a ruler. She suffered in silence as walls closed around her again, her days filled with lessons on obedience, her nights heavy with tears she was never taught how to shed. The poor dreamer vanished from her life, thrown back into obscurity with new scars of humiliation. Yet neither could erase what had grown between them. Love once awakened refuses to die quietly. The poor dreamer fell deeper into poverty, but not into despair. Pain sharpened his resolve. He worked harder, learned more, failed repeatedly, and stood up each time. He began helping others with his ideas, small changes that improved lives bit by bit. Slowly, whispers replaced laughter. The man with impossible dreams began turning them into reality, not through miracles, but through relentless effort. Meanwhile, the kingdom faced unseen decay. Crops failed, unrest grew, and old systems began to crumble. The advisors had wealth but no solutions. The princess watched helplessly as suffering spread beyond palace gates. She remembered the poor dreamer's ideas, once dismissed as foolish, now echoing in her mind as answers. In that moment, she realized love had given her clarity, not weakness. She made her choice knowing the cost. Standing before the court, she rejected the crown's command. She spoke of responsibility not as power, but as service. She spoke of a future built on empathy, not fear. And she declared her intention to marry the poor dreamer, not as an act of rebellion, but of belief. The kingdom erupted. Some cursed her name, some wept in disappointment, but others listened. Common people saw themselves reflected in her courage. The poor dreamer, summoned before the throne, stood trembling yet unbroken. He offered no riches, no armies, no alliances, only commitment, vision, and an unshakable love for both the princess and the people. The marriage was stripped of grandeur. No golden carriages, no endless feasts, yet something sacred filled the air. The princess stepped away from privilege, and the poor dreamer stepped into responsibility. Together, they faced storms of doubt, betrayal, and hardship. They struggled, they failed, they learned. Change came slowly, painfully, honestly. Over time, the kingdom healed, systems evolved, voices once ignored were heard. Prosperity grew not from conquest, but collaboration. The princess learned humility. The poor dreamer learned leadership. Love matured into partnership, and dreams turned into foundations. Years later, people no longer whispered about scandal. They told stories of courage. They spoke of a princess who chose love and a dreamer who chose service. They spoke of a kingdom reborn not through force, but faith in humanity. As the princess stood once more on her balcony, now older and wiser, she watched children play freely in streets once filled with hunger. She felt no regret. She had lost a crown, but gained a purpose. The poor dreamer stood beside her, still dreaming, but now building realities that outlived imagination. If this story is touching your heart, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who believes in love beyond status, and subscribe to support meaningful storytelling. And before the story ends, we have a special request. Please comment below with the words, "I believe in dreams," to let us know you stayed till the end. Because somewhere out there, a poor dreamer is waiting to be believed in, and somewhere a heart is brave enough to choose love over fear.